And we are live, 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 live.
Yay!
Yes, everyone. Thank you. My name is Diamond Rivera of Diamond Rivera Films. And today we have another live discussion. It is right now at 9:15 Eastern, 8:15 Central. And right next to me is the awesome Kyla Hallums. Before anything, I definitely want to say happy birthday.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're definitely gonna really have the audience and myself learn so much more about you, because especially in our dance scene, you've definitely been an integral part. We've seen you just traveling, spreading the joy of dance, really helping a lot of students understand the idea of body positivity, because definitely that is a topic that truly needs a lot more detail and context to, because as we know in our scene, women and men, but leads and follows come in all shapes and sizes. So, I appreciate having this discussion with you. And, I definitely want to take it from the top of where you started your journey until now. So the floor is yours.
Oh my goodness. Whew. So, wow. Yeah, so we'll just start from the beginning of kind of like, I feel like the reasons why I came to dance are a massive part of like what I have ended up bringing in dance. Because I know for me, like, it was just going to be a little hobby.
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily expecting it to turn into this movement that, I'm trying to
Mhm.
create now. So, we'll start from the top. Long story short,
Absolutely.
long story long probably. But you see this lovely scar I have on my chest here. Back in 2013, I was feeling super short of breath one weekend and weird. I didn't know what was going on. I collapsed in a parking lot and I was out cold for like 10 minutes. Finally woke up, called my parents, and I was inevitably life flighted to Vanderbilt, and I went straight into open heart surgery. And it was a 15.5-inch blood clot, like 15 and a half inches.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a lot. I was 20 years old at the time, and I just remember I collapsed in the parking lot. We woke up, went to the hospital, and then I woke up and it was like almost 8 hours later, and
Mhm.
I had this big scar on my chest, and I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
um, you know, so, there I was at 20 years old with this massive, what I saw then as an imperfection, what I see now is something totally different, which we'll talk about in a minute. But,
Yeah.
at the time it was debilitating. I was like,
Mhm.
overweight, already hated my body. I hated the way that I looked. I didn't see anything good in the way that I presented myself to the world, you know. And then now I have this massive thing on my chest that I didn't know what to do with. And
Yeah.
so the recovery was about 8 months. I moved back home with my parents, and I just really didn't know, like, I feel like a lot of people have gone through this where you just have that phase where you're like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do
Mhm.
here. No, I was placed on this earth. Am I supposed to just sit at this desk all day? Like, what am I supposed to be giving to the world?
Mhm.
And for me, like, it was really intense to be in that spot of like just not knowing, and also feeling this intense pressure to need to know.
Yeah.
You know.
I
So go ahead.
No, no, no. I mean, I definitely agree. I think it happens with a lot of people as they grow, and the kind of our parents and our authoritative figures, the people who are older than us, tell us there comes a point in your life when you have that internal question of what is my life's purpose, and
Mhm.
with the event that happened to you, and then as you gotten older, it is understandable to have those questions, because as you get into your 20s, into your 30s, and so forth, you kind of do want to understand, what do you feel that you can give to the world?
Mhm. Yeah. And for me, like, love you, mom and dad. They're probably watching right now. But like for me, thank you, Douglas. That's really sweet. um, for me, wow, he can be nice.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. We love you and you're trolling. um, so for, I grew up in a pretty conservative home, like me growing up to be a professional dancer was never really on the docket. It was never really on the books. That was not, you know, what anyone expected of me, I think. And so you talk about like, you know, that you get a little older and you realize like, I want to find this purpose. And for me, like I looked around in my life and it's like, okay, what did I see being celebrated? And for me, growing up in this small town that I grew up in, I saw getting married, having a couple kids, staying in your hometown, like that's what was celebrated.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, like I felt like some really intense pressure and like almost shame around, you know, not having that. And so just to kind of like go back to the surgery story. So in that 7-8 month recovery that I had, it was just really telling. It's like, we all go through traumas, I feel like, and our traumas show us who we are supposed to be. And, you know, that's why I very much preach like gratitude these days. And like, I'm so grateful that this happened to me because it woke me up. Like it woke me up to like, oh my God, maybe I could do something more, you know? And so, cause for me, whenever I was in that recovery, like the second I woke up from this, it was like, something has to change. I didn't know what yet. And I also feel like a lot of times when people are talking about their like crazy story that happened to them, like I feel like it's fun to say like, oh, this happened to me and then I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
That is not what happens. This happens and then you're like, I'm just going to swim and drown for a little while. And I don't really know, but we'll see.
Yeah.
You know, and so for me, it was like a long journey. It was like 2 years of like kind of just swimming around, not really knowing. Like I'd pick up a couple jobs here and there. Like going back to the whole, you know, getting married, having a couple kids, like that being what was celebrated. I was in a relationship with my high school sweetheart. We were together for like 5 years and awesome dude. But it was like, it wasn't fair to him because I was chasing after this ideal that had been placed on me. And so it was like, he was my avenue of like, we could do this together, you know, which, by the way, my friends, if you're doing that to somebody, stop. Right. It's like, we all deserve to have this like amazing love, you know, and that the love shouldn't have anything to do with this ideal that we have to fulfill. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You know? And so it was a long journey, but I ended up going ahead and breaking it off with him. And you know, as I kind of slowly inched away from all of those ideals and kind of became, you know, I don't know what you want to call it, but I was just definitely the person in the family that everyone was like, something different's happening over here.
Yeah, you become like the black sheep in a sense.
Yeah. I couldn't think of the word, but yes. And I was like, you know, and it was like black sheep light. Like I wasn't going crazy, but like I was doing enough to like push the buttons. You know, and so after the surgery, I recovered. You know, I ended up moving to Nashville, just from Lebanon, which is like 30 minutes outside of Nashville.
Okay.
I moved to Nashville, and I was teaching Zumba classes at the time. So that's kind of my first start into like movement of any sort. I went to some Zumba classes and I got pretty good at it. I mean, I've been a musician my whole life. So like I can hear the music. It was just a matter of like embodying it in my body and not just my voice, you know, which are two completely different skills. Because I know a lot of musicians that I'm like, surprising to me that you're not better at this, dancing.
I think that word is kind of just like overused, like the word love sometimes. And I would definitely agree that even for me, I'm from the city, but my wife is from the North Country. But a lot of times, I think it's not just even so much where you come from, it's the family that you're with that sometimes have these traditional ideals of what they see you and what they see fit for you. And, you know, as generations change, decades change, beliefs change. And the more and more we're kind of put, because I always tell people that when you're born, you have a mom and you have a dad or parental guardian, but you're really the world's child.
I love that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna steal that.
The experiences you go through. I mean, we have parents, but we realize. I used to also do assistant teaching. I learned that kids were more at home kids were more at school than they were at home. So you learn so much more in school. That's why your parents always told you, watch who you speak to, or watch who you talk to, watch who you hang with. And I think as we got older, a lot of our parents had ideas of what they saw fit for us. But again, they aren't us. I mean, sometimes they're looking for our best interests.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, in your family, your family started seeing you were taking definitely a different path than they were accustomed to.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it was really hard for them. Like, I'll be honest, like it was tough, and like, it still has its moments, you know? But I think the best thing that I did was just like, not let that play a role. Like, and now granted, I have my moments, obviously, as we all do, where I'm like, maybe they're right. And maybe this isn't the right thing. I don't know. Like, you know, but you know, as I kind of just kept doing it and kept, cause I always knew, like, I knew there was something. And for a long time, like even as I was doing dance, like I talked about this with one of my first mentors, Nicole, in Nashville. And I was just like, I don't know, like what I want to bring. Like I want to dance, but I know there's something else, you know? And so I think one of the biggest things that I did to help myself was just like freaking keep going, like just not stopping. And even on the days when like no one cares and no one's watching, like continue doing it for myself and knowing that there's like this something at the end of the tunnel, you know?
Absolutely.
And I feel like because I did that, like now, and it's taken some time, and like I said, he still has his moments, especially my dad. But like they see now, and because of, I think I mentioned this, but because of quarantine, I went ahead and moved back home just for a couple months. Artist life, y'all. It's tough for us out here in this quarantine. But I moved it just for a couple months. I'm going to move out probably in August, but it's been really nice to like be here, and it's been fun for them to see like that this is work. Like I think it was confusing for them to like, for me to say like, oh, I got to go work, and my dad would be like, where are you working? Like, are you working at the restaurant? Because I bartend every now and then at a spot downtown. And I'm like, no, I'm working in dance. He's like, oh, whatever, hobby. But it's been really nice for like me to be here and them to see like, oh, Kyla's going to work. So there's been a lot more like respect around like the craft and what I'm doing. And that's been really fun to like be a part of, and like have them be able to see, you know, what goes on behind the scenes. And then it's not all like me shaking my ass in front of the camera. Because in their head, it's just like, oh, there she goes, shaking it again. I'm like, well, it's a part of the job. You know?
You know, I mean, like, especially now during quarantine, like when you say I'm going to work and your parents are looking at you, like, what are you really doing? And I think, like you said, your parents weren't maybe, I don't know if they were fully 100% supportive of the dance career, because what happens is I myself have been subject to this, that our family members are always wondering, where is the monetary gain, or where is the ultimate success? But the success is within, because the students you teach, the routines you do, the stage you're on helps inspire the new dancers that come. And I see too, Danny says, I remember hearing you sing for the first time in one of our English classes. You forgot your music, so you just started singing it. Beautiful voice.
That sounds like me. I would totally do that. I remember that. Wow, that was a long time ago.
Yes, you know, it's and what I love too is that for me, even though living in New York, I consider New Orleans my second home. And I've really realized over the years that the people, especially from down south, Midwest, they have a different vibe from people from New York, and that's something I love. The hospitality, the warmth. And realizing that people also from the South and the Midwest, they are definitely crazy like us. And, you know, it's something to be celebrated.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Funny story. Story time. So yes, Southern hospitality all day, like to a fault. Like I'm annoying sometimes with it, I think, but it's okay. So Tina and I, it was my first time in Boston with Tina, who I'm sure we'll talk about later. But so we're in the grocery store in Boston, and I'm being my like bubbly self. This was before masks, so we're walking down the aisle, and I'm like, "Hey, yes, gonna get my cheese," like, you know, just being me. And we go up to this counter, and you know, they're like making deli sandwiches. We were like ordering something, and the guy, he was like, "Hello, what can I get?" I was like, "Hey, how are you, friend?" Yeah. And he was like, I'm terrible. You see this line of people behind you? I'm doing horrible. You want anything? Any other questions? And I was like, oh my God, I hate everything. But I will say, it was triumphant, because I'm not, if you haven't noticed, I'm not one to give up easily. So I'm like, no, bitch, we're going to turn your day around right here. And I was like, yo, I know it's tough, but you're doing great. Look at those sandwiches.
Yes, you got to turn a negative into a positive.
Yes. Anyway, in story time. Period.
You know, and I appreciate this, because these conversations, these discussions I have, you know, of course, the point is always to get the other person's story across. But more than that, the audience and myself really get to see the genuine
Mm,
characters, because so a lot of times the dancers that we see, we kind of see them from afar. We don't
mm,
always have that close knit relationship or that kind of that one on one to see who they really are in their true form. And stuff like this is amazing because just being comfortable in your own skin is important, because as we've seen or we've known people that a lot of times, besides body positivity, it's the self image, the self doubt, it's the, you know, self reflection that is lost, because a lot of times people are just so focused on what others think of them
mm.
that they lose sight of themselves.
Gosh, you're gonna need to say it again for the people in the back. Did you hear that?
Yes. You know, but I definitely believe that, you know, seeing where Kyla first started in her dance journey, like you said, you were a Zumba instructor. So I think a lot of dancers, whether you're bachata, salsa, whatever style you are, they always had a love for music. I think that's
Mm.
kind of the resounding theme, is the love for music helped me evolve and take that and start into dancing. So I definitely love that you kind of started with Zumba. And then for me, a big question was, what was bachata the first style that like really just took over you, or was there another style that kind of helped?
It was salsa. I'm a
Okay.
salsa all day. Like, and all my students that come to me for bachata, I'm like, we can work on bachata all day, but like salsa is such a fundamental for me. And it's what made me a better dancer faster. And for me, and it's different for everybody. But, you know, I mean, I haven't been in the scene that long, you know,
Mhm.
it is not, I'm kind of one of the newbies, a
Mhm.
little bit, you know, but I've tried really hard to like immerse myself. Like my, you know, almost 7 years dancing is probably going to look a little bit different than like someone else's, you know, 3 years, just because every single day I went to socials 7 days a week in Nashville. Like when I first started, like I was not playing no games, and I didn't know bachata existed. Like
Mhm.
so what I told you about the who I broke up with and like everything
Yes.
that happened, the surgery had happened. I had moved to Nashville. I was like ready to turn over a new leaf, not really knowing what I was going to do, but like, you know, so I went on Meetup and
Oh, yes, yes, yeah, I
mhm,
definitely know.
yeah. And so I went on Meetup and I saw this salsa class and I was like, and fun fact, when I was in college, there was a salsa team, which I now know that one of the instructors in Nashville was on that team at the time. But whenever I was in college, there was a salsa team, and I saw their little flyers everywhere. And at the time, I was like, I can't dance. I'm too big to dance. Like I'm not small enough to be a dancer. So I refused. I wouldn't go. But you know, after the surgery, a lot of things changed. So I went to I saw this meetup at the studio in Nashville, and I went and I sat in my car for like 10 minutes before walking in there, and I was just shaking in my boots, like terrified, like so scared. Cause like, I mean, I'm an extrovert. I'm going to go in anywhere and probably
Yeah.
make a friend, like, you know, to a fault. I can't help
Mhm.
myself. I could talk to a wall, obviously. um, but I was scared because I'm like, okay, I just left this circle of friends from that previous relationship. I want to make new friends. And then I'm going to go in and learn this skill that I've never done before in my life. And so finally I went in, and now that's the studio that I work at now. The first class that I went to, which I think was like 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, something like that. And I just fell in love that night. Someone was like, well, there's a social after if you want to go. And I now know that like when you first start, like people are scared of socials. Like they don't
Yeah.
go out for like months. Bitch, day one, I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
And
And like those new dancers that just apologize all over
oh,
you.
yes, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm doing this wrong. Just understand, you know.
That was me. That was me every day. Yes. That was so my life. You know, so I hit the ground running, man, and I was not
Mhm.
playing no games. I had never, and one of the things, like, you know, I know we're going to talk about body stuff, but like
Mhm.
I had always looked at my body as something that just needed to change. And I never looked at it as it was like, if I'm going to be a dancer, I need to make sure I change this. If I'm gonna be a singer, I need to make sure that I look this way. Like I never in my head thought like, I'm gonna go be a dancer. I'm gonna go be a singer. Every single thing was underneath this umbrella in my mind of I can't do that yet until I have a flat stomach, until I'm smaller, you know? And so something happened after the surgery and everything. I think like, you know, you almost die. Like 15 and a half inches of a blood clot is not small. For my medical people watching this, like, you know that blood clots kill people that are like 2 inches. It came out in one piece. Like it was massive. And like, you know, when you almost die, it was just like, I think I just got to this space where I was like, I can't stop. I can't continue to not live my life because I don't look a certain way or because I wasn't raised a certain way or like it was like all of these things that all of these other people had placed onto me that I was like, I have to be done. Like, you know, and so through dance, and I didn't really know, like I am insightful about that now, you know, 6 years later, after I've taken the time to, you know, analyze it. But in the middle of it, I had no idea. I didn't know. I just knew that I wanted to, you know, do something different. And yes, Delia, yes. I get very distracted by the comments.
No, it's perfect. This is what we hear.
You know, and so it was like I started learning salsa and I come into this beautiful community in Nashville, which Nashville has a lovely community. Anybody ever coming through? Come on. Not right now. We're not having anything, but at some point, you know, and it was like for the first time, like no one was telling me like, you're going to be able to do salsa in 30 pounds when you lose 30 pounds. Like no one in the arena was telling me that. And in so many other places in my life, I heard that. So it was just like, you mean to tell me that I can walk in today and I can learn salsa today and I can be good at it and I don't have to change anything? Like I was confused, I think, you know? And so I think part of the experience and like looking back on it, as I like immersed myself in this beautiful culture, like full of like history and full of like just so much goodness, you know, I was like, oh my God, like my body can do this. And I started to get good at it. And like, you know how it goes when you're in a scene, like at first you're a beginner, whatever. And then you kind of move up the ranks and people start to notice you and things like that. And that started to happen. And it was like for the first time in my life, like whenever I was dancing, and now I hadn't figured it out quite yet back then, but I knew that whenever I was dancing, like I was not ashamed of my body. And if it was only for 3.5 minutes in that moment, I got chills. Like if only for a moment, I didn't feel shame. And I would go home and I would still feel shame. You know, I would still feel that. But the dance floor is whenever I felt like that person that I always wanted to be, but I never could be because I was still listening to those people telling me that I needed to be smaller, that I needed to look different in order to do the thing. But in those 3.5 minutes on the dance floor with a stranger, with someone, nothing else mattered. Nothing, you know? And so that, and for me, like, as I now teach these body love classes and things like that, it's like, it's so important. Stop, Delia, you're going to make me cry. Oh, I'm going to cry at some point. If you know me, I'm going to cry. But like, you know, as I teach these body love courses and things like this, it's like, you have to craft spaces for you to feel unashamed. And even if that means it's in your bedroom with the lights off and you turn on a song and you just feel yourself for a second and with the music, like that's enough, you know, like we got to find those places where you unlock the chains of these things that people have placed on you and you're able to feel that freedom, you know, and even if you walk out the door the next day and you still feel it, you know, the more of those spaces that you're able to create, the less those chains, you know, weight you down, you know?
Yes, I definitely agree, because just as much as women have dealt with body positivity and body image issues and the self-consciousness, there have been a lot of men, including myself, because at me starting at the age of 6, and we all know that kids can be very mean, and realizing, you know, with a lot of dance costumes, a lot of times it's kind of that one size fits most. And for me, being of a chubbier kid who was in a sea of people who were all skinnier, it was a culture shock at a younger age. But For me, I guess at a younger age, I really started accepting myself because a lot of other people who were older than me couldn't just grasp that their own bodies were their temple. A lot of times they allowed other people to just chip at them and find insecurities of themselves. And these people who were making fun of them were dealing with their own insecurities. And a lot of times that they say misery loves company, and it really doesn't matter the age. I mean, like you said, you were hearing from that community that you were so close to. It's just about learning the dance, but you were hearing from the other communities of you have to learn how to dance, but this is how you should look. And as you saw that, not every community was the same.
Mm.
So I mean, that was definitely important because it showed you that if you can just love, you have to love yourself before you can love anyone else. And when you love yourself, you know, you can help others love themselves, because I think the biggest issue is other people's perceptions on what they think we should be. And it's really also, sometimes it's not really the mean insults, it's more of like the microaggression, more of the little like, oh, little sarcasms here that people understand can really hurt. And you know, as we get older, a lot of times if we don't deal with those past insecurities, they just fester. And as we get older, it just intensifies. So when you're in a scene like this, full of so many people, and a lot of times if you're seeing, especially for a woman who's in a scene, and you're seeing women that look like a certain way or are told to look a certain way, then people will automatically see that as the ideal. And you know, for a person like yourself that realized coming from an event that you have almost lost your life, it's those moments that make you just say, I'm gonna accept myself, you know. And that is, it's a beautiful story that you've had. You know, we're so glad you're here, because like you said, those moments, and people in medical fields know, a lot of people do not come back from that. And I think everything again happens for a reason. And you know, you speaking about how you love yourself, I know someone here will definitely, male or female, lead or follow, will take that, and in their home, in their own space, they'll really just like hone that. And you know, it's a beautiful thing to hear.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's and you know, and I say this all the time, and it's so important, I think, to remember of like, it's such a journey. Like, you know, as we sit here and as we have this beautiful discussion about like body image and body positivity, and that I'm the center of this discussion, and we're talking about my experience and how I've grown to love myself, you know, it's like on Wednesday, I might have a complete breakdown about my body. You know, I might have a complete breakdown about everything. Like, you know, so I think it's important that as people that are listening to this, you know, and to get some encouragement, like, yes, I love being an example of like, you can love yourself. You can, you know, be in this body that you have and not view it as temporary and love it. You know, it's like, but it's a practice every single day. You know, and it's like, it's something that takes your attention every single day. And it's like, you know, in my body love classes that I do, you know, I have my students make mantras for themselves. And I know it might seem cliche, but it's like, I have to say that shit to myself every single day, because if not, my little friend that likes to be the ugly little voice in my head that likes to tell me that what I'm doing doesn't matter and likes to tell me that I need to quit, you know, it's like the less that I, you know, you have to figure out who you're feeding. You know, are you feeding your higher self, or are you feeding that little voice? And, you know, it's two very intense choices that you have to make. So I just wanted to say, like, you know, as you listen to these interviews, and if people that are listening to this right now that are struggling, like, you know, it is a constant daily practice. There's no destination. Like, I'm never going to be like, I am 100% body positive, or like, no, I'm not. You know, I have my moments. Everybody does. But I like to think of it as like, I have this like emotional tool belt that I wear all the time. And it's like every single day, every single experience I go through, even the negative ones, I'm like, all right, I'm just gaining more tools to help me understand, like, how do I make sure that I continue to stay at this high vibe? And then some days I have my toolbox completely full and ready to take on the world and build my house. And then some days, somehow I lost all my tools. I don't know where they went, and I'm a train wreck and I stay in bed.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's just important to note like the contrast and that that's okay.
Yes.
And especially in the beginning, like it's a part of the process. You know, it's such a big part of it. And like, you know, one of the things that I try to bring to because I feel like when it comes to body love, I feel like there's some courses available out there. And I've even taken some courses where it's like, you can read information all day long. Like you can read information all day long. You can learn something. You can have it right in front of you and have all the information necessary and not understand how to become it, how to practice it, how to be it. So a lot of the work that I do, I try really hard to give people a safe space to start to feel. Like like, how does my body feel in this moment? Like just a simple act of like bringing an awareness. It's like, it's monumental. Like some of the private sessions that I've had with people, it's like, and I think another thing, like with my intention with it all is like, I realize that on this journey of like empowerment and self-love, it has nothing to do with how much I inspire you. Like, I'm glad that my journey has brought you here, but like, if we're going to work together, like it's my job to create a safe container for you to empower yourself from within, not from me. Like I can't empower you. I can teach you how to empower yourself. And I just think that those are two very different points of selling. And I think there's a lot of watch me be empowered and get empowered rather than safe space for you to figure out how to empower yourself, you know? And so I feel very, and I just want to, you mentioned this and I want to speak to it really quick, but like this idea that only women need empowerment is bullshit. It's crazy. Only women need body positivity. And also it's like now, like there are, you know, gender is fluid. You know, like we have our non-binary friends, we have our, you know, male friends, we have, you know, transgender, like so many different, you know, gender roles that there are that for me, I feel like, you know, somehow this idea of like confidence has been limited to women. It's like women can buy this confidence course. Like, you know, I've seen so many like, you know, like ladies confidence, ladies this, and that is okay. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying that I feel very driven and led to, I want to create a safe space for anyone of any gender. And like, I don't think I'll ever have a team that is fully one gender. I don't think I would ever do that. And I think it's totally okay for those that want to, but I think part of I feel very strongly about creating a safe space I want anyone to be able to walk off the street from any sort of background and walk into my class, whatever it may be, and feel safe. Even if they feel challenged, like I want them to feel safe. And there's a lot of practices, sometimes even still today in our scene, where people walk into this setting that's supposed to be full of love and learning and light, and they don't feel safe, you know? And so I love that you mentioned that, you know, this idea of body positivity, body image, body love, it's just as important, no matter your gender. Your gender has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. I've had men message me and say like, I'm nervous to take this course with you because I know it's going to be a lot of women. And I'm like, actually, no, we're going to have lots of men and we're going to have non-binaries in there. So come on, you know? And I think that's just such a beautiful, you know, it's such a beautiful thing whenever we can all be in the same space and, you know, go ahead.
No, I'm just soaking it all in because I do believe what we have, I think in society in general, this dates back even to the early 1900s, women and the gender roles were always just separated, and they felt men were the machismo. It didn't really, sometimes the image of it, whether it was a burly man, a heavier guy, a chiseled man, when it came to women, you saw commercials and you saw models and you saw just the media, everything that was thrown at you was telling you how to be the perfect woman. But a lot of times when it came to that, it was men writing these articles, telling women how to be women.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And I think I think over time, people of all genders started realizing that a lot of the stuff we were being fed, we don't have to agree with. It's not that if somebody writes, that's the end all be all. And I appreciate that you even said that you preach body positivity, but there are moments that you have vulnerability. It's important because a lot of people will say, oh, she's a body positive. She advocates for it. So she must be body positive and have all the self-confidence 24/7, 365. And we're all human because there are moments we feel so vulnerable. Maybe we need that time by ourselves just to reflect. Or there are those times that, we're sharing all of our information and all of our resources to the world as much as we can. But again, like you said, there is a balance. There are times that we're as high as we can be mentally, and then there are times where we might have those low moments. So exposing that vulnerability is key.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And I love what you said just then. And I have to go back to this with myself on a daily basis. And it's something that I struggle with comparison a lot, of like comparing myself. And I mean, vulnerability has always been a strong suit of mine, like to a fault. I will be vulnerable with you. I might regret it, but I probably can get vulnerable. But, I feel like one of my, struggles has been comparison. And whenever I meditate on that and figure out like, okay, where does that come from? And that's been a big part of my journey is like, okay, I'm feeling this feeling that I have isn't rational, where is it coming from? And so for me, sometimes I just have to, I meditate and like, sometimes I just have to go there. And like, for me, it was, my 12-year-old self on the playground getting bullied, and I had to like see her and be like, hey, I love you. And like, it's going to be okay, And so this idea of like comparing ourselves and, you mentioned social media, and I think social media can be such a beautiful thing and can be such a beautiful thing that brings a lot of awareness and brings us together, especially right now. I've been definitely grateful for social media in a lot of ways. And also sometimes it can be really difficult if you get into scroll land.
Yes.
And, you get into scroll land, which we all do. And then, you realize like, wow, this person, looks so much better than I do, or this person's life is so much better than mine. And like, and for me, like moments where I'm like, God, I wish I was a better dance teacher. I wish I was that good of a dancer. I wish I, could do that, and like, again, that little voice that I mentioned, comes back in and starts talking to you. And so I think, social media, I love the moments of vulnerability on social media that we come across, and I think that they are beautiful. Sometimes they're few and farther between, which is why I try really hard to bring a lot of vulnerability to my posts. Again, sometimes probably maybe too much, but I think that social media can be a highlight reel, and when we get into those low lows that you mentioned, it can just fuel that fire. And so for me, it's been, knowing that when I get into that space, like, okay, I need to I'm going to take a day off of social media and let me just, and for all of it, body positivity, self-love, like the umbrella is massive here of like all the things we can be talking about here. But it's like, giving yourself the permission to take your time and whatever that means for you, it's like, wow, I'm feeling like I'm really comparing myself here and I need to stop looking at this for a second. It's like, come back into your body, come back into the present. It's like, okay, what are you actually offering the world? And it's generally not what that little voice is saying, so I think I love that you brought up social media and the highlight reel that it is. And it's like, I think the main thing with that is like, we just gotta, continue to be honest with ourselves. And like, I think it can be tough sometimes of, that feeling of I'm feeling this way. And even when it's irrational, having to dig deeper into that. Because it's like, when you get into that space of not digging deeper into it and just allowing that to kind of sit on the surface, it then bleeds into your relationships. It bleeds into all of this, all of the things that you do. And that's whenever I think the cloud starts to seep in. Yeah.
I definitely agree with you so much because we have lived in different cities in different times, but we have gone through we have had the same thought process because with social media, with TV and such, and even sometimes the people we just surround ourselves with, a lot of times there's those microaggressions that happen that we don't think about then, but we think about later. Sometimes the question of how do I look in this? And you're waiting for a comment that is positive to you, you know, can be definitely yes, it can be detrimental, you know, and
get out of here with that stuff. We stop.
Yes. And for me, from the past 2 or 3 years, I was able to see, especially on social media, the beauty of it, especially your work with Tina Cavaccio. I met Tina probably 2015, 2016, and she's just always been just a light. And for me, I definitely want you to kind of elaborate on your transition into the bachata scene. And, you know, you can tell any kind of stories, but definitely giving us an idea of what it was like to connect and collaborate with her.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, there was a lot of salsa teachers in Nashville, and there wasn't that many bachata teachers. So that was the biggest thing. And then one night before a social, someone was like, we need someone to teach a bachata class. And someone messaged me, and I was like, okay, like whatever. And then it began. And then, you know, the wheel just kept turning there. But yeah, so, you know, Baila with Kyla started in 2018.
Okay.
In January of 2018, I was like, I'm going to do it. And so, you know, the name was there, the rhyming was there. And I was like,
the name fit. The name was
thank
perfect.
you. We're doing it.
Yeah.
Also, a fun story fact, I hate being called Kayla. Like, it's on my list of no-nos. Like, you get one, and then I'm like, no. Which I should probably think about that and where that comes from in my soul. But I don't love it. And so it's so funny that, like, if you don't understand, you know, Spanish at all, someone would be like, what's Baila with Kayla? And I'm like,
yeah.
But anyway, so Baila with Kyla started in 2018. And, you know, for a year I was teaching classes at the studio in Nashville every single week. And it, like, in the beginning, it was just like, I need to teach. Like, I need to be teaching. You know, Nicole, my mentor that I mentioned, who we love her, Nicole La Bailarina on Facebook. She's amazing. She, you know, she had me like teach to her. Like, it would just be me and her, and she'd be like, all right, teach me how to do this. And I'm like, but it was a really important piece to, like, because, like, it's one thing to know how to dance. It's a whole nother skill to learn how to teach. And I had taught other things. Like, I've directed choirs. I've, like, taught things, but I never taught dance before, you know? So I understand the pedagogy of teaching, but I had never done it through dance. So anyway, I was teaching every single week, like, teaching as much as I could at as many venues in Nashville as I could. Like, and I never, and initially it was just like a little side thing. I was like, I don't see this really going anywhere. Like, but then as it kind of continued and I figured out what my vibe was, like what I wanted to do, you know, things kind of started to take off. And I remember the first Congress I ever taught at was New Orleans Salsa Bachata Festival. And that was in 2019. Wait.
Yeah,
2018. No. That was 2018. 2018. Yeah. And that was the first one I ever taught at. And, you know, Dejan Polanski, we had worked at I had taught at a festival like a couple of months before that. And that's where Dejan and I met. And, you know, he loved my vibe and everything. And we talked about it a lot. And I was that annoying artist that was just like, if you could just give me, you know, a room, like just let me try. And, you know, I had this idea of musicality because of my musician brain. I knew in any sort of, you know, once I was like, okay, hi, Scott, I love you. Thank you. Like, once I, you know, was in the scene and I was like, okay, I can do this. I was like, all right, it has to be something different. Like, I also thought that because I was like, I look this way, I need to make sure that I'm packing heat. Like, I need to make sure that I'm bringing it, you know, whatever it is. So I had this concept for like a musicality class, and like a very different musicality class, like a little bit more like, let's begin to become aware of the music and let's learn how to like listen and react rather than like, I'm going to sit you down and take you through all the instruments, which I love that. That is an incredible training. But there's also this, again, like going back to this idea of like putting it into practice, right? So I taught my musicality class in NOLA. It was amazing. It was so incredible. So many of the Nashville community showed out and supported. And so that happened. And then after that, I kind of like, I was going to a lot of events. I was teaching here and there. I was teaching in Eric Ordonez, who runs Atlanta Salsa Bachata Festival. I was teaching at some of his events. And then I taught at Atlanta Salsa Bachata Festival. So like, I was starting to teach around in events, but I was, you know, I was at the bottom of the totem pole. I was like, you know, teaching at 9 a.m., but that's all right. You know, we get up, we do it. And, you know, the ball was kind of starting to roll. I did my first solo, and like, you know, my solo was very different. It was very much like, body love. And like, as I kind of have gone on this journey, figuring out that, all right, like body stuff is really an important piece of this. And also in that, you know, I've had to do a lot of work of like knowing that, you know, my worth as a dancer isn't just because I'm a curvy dancer, you know, it's like, I struggled with like, I didn't want it to be that I'm being successful just because I'm curvy. Like, you know, so it was an interesting like flip flop. Anyway, so teaching at a bunch of events, like, you know, and like the ball was starting to roll, like people were kind of sort of ish starting to know who I was, which was fun and unexpected. But then I went to, so Douglas, who was on here earlier.
Douglas Ortiz.
Yeah, so he did an event in Detroit, and it was about like highlighting women and like women in the scene, women that are, you know, like kind of, yeah, he mentioned that he wanted the event to like, you know, be, Scott, thank you. Sorry, I just saw Scott's comment. See, this comments, man. That means a lot. Scott's an amazing teacher. Oh, I'm watching. Okay, let me get, where was I? So Detroit, they had this like, you know, all women, empower women. And Douglas's idea for it was that he wanted to highlight, you know, people in the scene that weren't the headliners yet, that weren't mainstream quite yet. Like, cause and when he talked to me about it, he was like, you know, I know that you're kind of just starting out, but I want to give you a space, which was amazing. Thank you, Douglas. So Tina was on the list, and it was so funny because Tina was in Nashville and like, I think it was like 2016 or something like that. She was in Nashville she was teaching. And I, at the time, wasn't teaching at all. I was working. And I remember I met her for like 5 seconds at a social, and we danced. And then that was it. Like, all right, bye. Like, nice to meet you. Bye-bye. Yeah. So that was like almost 3 years before this.
Okay.
And then, you know, our paths didn't cross again. But then over that like year before Detroit, people were starting to like message and be like, oh my God, you have to meet Tina. Or they would message her and be like, oh my gosh, you would love Kyla, kind of thing. But like, we didn't really know. Yeah. And so Detroit event happened. We get there and like, we met and like people had hyped us up. So we're like, oh my gosh, like, hi, nice to meet you. Like, you know, like we felt like we kind of already knew each other from like everything, but you never know. And so, okay, story time. And then we'll get back to the dancing. So the first night, and this is kind of why, like, you know, people all the time are like, God, you guys are so connected. I can't believe you've only known each other for like a year and a couple months, you know, and we can't believe it either, for the record. But so we're staying at one of Douglas's friends' houses, and like a lot of the artists are there. You know, every artist has had that event where you go and it's like everyone's staying in one place and it's like a hot train wreck, but that's what makes it fun, you know, that everyone's all in the same space. So Tina and I's bedroom was the living room, and they're like, Tina and Kyla can stay together, which was funny because we're like, we just met, but okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So we're on this like, it was a full-size air mattress, and it was our first day. We had just met each other. We go, you know, we're going to sleep. So we're sleeping together in this full-size air mattress, and we go to sleep, and about 30 minutes, you know, pass by, and we're dead asleep. And we both wake up to like this sound. And I wake up and like, I'm on the floor and Tina's like totally on top of me. And we're on the floor because there was a hole in the mattress.
Oh my God.
So we wake up and we're just like, okay. Like, so we were like, we met through trauma. Like, like what is happening? Anyway, so we both taught separately at that event, but obviously went to each other's classes and like just hit it off. Yes. Like, you know, it was one of those things where you go to someone's class and you're like, check, yes, check, yes, check. You just like agree on everything. But it was a really nice balance where like we both kind of were coming at it from a different perspective, but like under the same umbrella. So we're just really like intensely learning from each other. And it was beautiful. And so then that night, at one of the nights at that festival, we danced to the song River, the like super extra, like sensual, like rock me like a river. Yes, that one. So we danced, and it was just, we're so extra, like obviously, like we're just so dramatic, like just, you know. And so someone got it on video and they posted it and it went viral. Like, I mean, I've never had anything go viral. I think she probably had, but like, it got like 220,000 views, like on Facebook, just shot up. And so that kind of like, we kind of talked about it. And then Rubia, we call her Rubik's, from New Orleans. Yes. Yeah. So she was there at the event. And then like, you know, she got inspired by seeing all of us together. And then so for her event in NOLA in August, she came to Tina and I and was like, would you two be interested in directing a performance challenge? And we were like, sure. Like Tina had directed a few performance challenges. I had never done anything like that before, but of course I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like we directed a women's empowerment challenge in NOLA. And so that was kind of our thing that we had to do together. That was kind of what brought us together. And, I went up to Boston to work with her on it. She came down to Nashville and like, we worked on all this, hours and hours of work, which by the way, the video's on YouTube somewhere. It was a really beautiful, beautiful piece. It was like, we had 8 hours with them and we put together a 6-minute show. It was insane, but it was super fun. It was crazy. Yes. Jennifer was in it. Oh, I love that. Mommy Chula. Yes. But yeah, that kind of gave us something to work on. And then through that yes, Tara was in it too. So through that, we had something to work on, and we kind of like, when you work with someone and you're just like, oh, wow, like this is nice. Because you work with some people and it's like, but it was just so nice because we both were just like very emotionally aware of each other. And like, I don't know, it was just so easy to work with each other. And now granted, like Tina's been in the game longer than I have. Like I was also just a little sponge soaking up. But then again, like coming from the perspective of someone who hasn't been in the game as long, is also a really important piece of this puzzle, and so it was really nice for Tina to see the validity in that and make me feel like I had something to offer in a time when I didn't feel I could get like intimidated and nervous because of Tina's experience. But then, Tina's very good about like making sure that I know, like, yeah,
you're comfortable. Yeah. Because, like you said, you had a person that has been dancing longer in the scene and has that experience of doing challenges and just being kind of a social figure, and you yourself coming up, you guys could learn so much because you're learning from a person with experience, but she is learning from a person that kind of is fresh. So you get that perspective of understanding that there are so many new fresh faces and new people in the scene that we have to understand both.
Oh my God, absolutely. 100%. And she like, from day one, I talk about body image, body positivity and stuff. And like I said, like, I didn't always know that was going to be such a big part of the journey, but like Tina has been such an amazing, like push in that department. Like she's just been right there from the moment of like me thinking about this idea of body love and being scared of it. And she's always just been there like, go do it. Go, just do it. And so she's, and just to have someone of her caliber and her, talent standing beside me and saying like, you're good enough, go, and like, we have this really close relationship, but we also don't bullshit each other. And, like if there are moments where we're like, that was a train wreck, we're going to talk to each other about how it was a train wreck. But, we love to, with our classes and when we teach together, we're so much more focused on the experience we're creating in a class than the pattern that we're giving. Or like, so for her and I, like one thing that we really gelled with, and in the beginning, me a little bit more than her, again, from that fresh perspective, for me, I'm like, it's all about experience. And I'm like, take your time. If you don't finish the pattern, who cares? And from Tina's perspective, it was kind of the opposite. So we both have kind of come together in that. And I've learned from her perspective and she's learned from mine in that regard. But one of the things that we love, once we go teach a class, we leave immediately and we go talk about it. And we're like, okay, this, and this happened. Like, okay, how could we do that? Move that a little bit more smooth. And then my favorite part, Diamond, we fucking celebrate each other.
That is the most
celebrate each other. And like, it sounds so tiny and it sounds so silly, but like it's monumental. And like, and we've gotten feedback in our classes that people can see it. Like when I'm talking, like there's no like, cause have you ever been in a class where the follow starts talking and the vibe of the lead gets a little bit different of like, let's go, hurry it up, pumpkin. All right, I got shit to say, we talked about that because in the beginning, and then not because of Tina, but because of me, because I was a little nervous. Like I didn't feel like I had much of a space to speak just because I was like, Tina's been doing this longer. Like, let me let her take it, and we had to have a lot of talks of like, we need to be really intentional about this. And, Tina is well aware that my perspective is going to bring something different than hers and vice versa. So anyway, like anybody that's an artist right now, or you have a partner, like the importance of celebrating each other. We literally will sit there for an hour and be like, I love the way that you said this. Like, I love how you went into that thing, or I love, and that's been so huge for us. And I mean, I'm sure you see on social media today, my birthday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a blessing that you can celebrate with me.
Oh my gosh.
For
Tina,
me,
right. Go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. No, just more like when I'm hearing the stories, because I've lived it as a dancer, going to classes, and you definitely see, especially with couples teaching, you see that when one of them is talking more than the other, the vibe just changes. But what I think too is people have to realize when you're using the terms of lead and follow, a leader had to follow at one point in order to become the lead. When you are doing a couple routine and there's a lead and a follower, it takes two. And again, the biggest issue, or one of the biggest issues in our dancing that I've seen, is the lack of celebrating each other, because having that space is sacred, even if it is for those 45 minutes to an hour. Teaching as many people as you can, or choose to come to your class, no matter if you had a 9 a.m. class or a 5 p.m. class. It doesn't really matter so much the size, it's the impact and what information are you going to instill.
100%. And I feel like, and this is another reason, like for me, I'm like, the experience is like number one priority for me. Like, and I think, your students are a mirror of you.
Reflection.
A reflection of you. You are in a mirror at all times. And so for Tina and I, we feel really strongly to make sure that our students walk away feeling like they can celebrate themselves. And like, what better way to be an example than to celebrate each other in front of them, and it's just so important, and with leading and following, Tina and I, we switch roles in class. And so sometimes in certain, classes that we teach, she'll teach 2 8 counts as a lead, and then I'll switch over and I'll take over the lead and she'll follow. Because when we switch those roles, I have a different perspective as a lead than she does. And she has a different perspective as a follow than I do. So we switch it up, and the students that are in our class are just like, okay, great, like whatever. And we let them know, like, all right, Kyla, lead now. And then we switch, and we've done that. And it's been so fun. And if we're teaching something like a simple pattern or like a beginner class, sometimes we'll ask that our partners switch. We do that all the time, actually. We'll have them switch roles. And like, I think it's just so important that people continue to see situations in which lead and follower are not based on gender roles.
Yes.
And it's in the little moments. Like, yes, leading and following, saying leads and follows is super important. Saying, not using gendered language is incredibly important, but also just becoming that idea and being that, and having situations where they can see, that like the tiny little thing of the lead not talking the whole time in class, and then it's like equality, again, a reflection, a mirror, like they're going to be that, whatever we are, and so Tina and I have just fallen in love with teaching with each other and like sharing space together. And, anyway, it's been like a beautiful journey with her. And like, how I mentioned earlier, I don't know that I would have, gone down this body love road so hard if it wasn't for her, because I think we all need somebody in there's this song that I love. I'm a big musical theater nerd, but it's, oh my God, Diamond, you have no idea.
Oh man, I definitely dabbled in the music back in the day.
Really?
Absolutely.
What's your favorite?
I mean, musical theater. I mean, if we're going all the way back to like West Side Story, if we're going, my favorite of all time has to be Fame, 1980.
Really?
That
Wait,
is
the
my
movie
favorite.
or the like?
No, I'm talking about the movie, like the original movie.
Oh,
Yeah, those, especially music definitely runs in my family, and I think it's important that people understand that a lot of our dancers, a lot of our instructors that especially have musical theater or musical backgrounds, these are people that we really cannot take for granted, because a lot of times there's so many dance instructors nowadays that everybody now is just trying to see who has the best turn pattern, who has the best body roll, who has the best dip. Yes. And a lot of times, a lot of these instructors don't know the music. They can't tell you about timing. They can't even tell you what instrument was used in that section, in that
Yes.
transition.
Tina
And
and I talk about this all the time. Like the skill of counting musically is a skill, and we see it all the time. Like, you know, someone you can tell. I can tell immediately. Is this person musical? Listen to them count. Nope. All right. Like,
and yeah, you know, it's definitely an important trait to have because it's okay if you're not musically inclined, but you have to start becoming it, especially when you're teaching dance. It's not just about the steps.
I love that. Like becoming the music. I love that. Yes, absolutely. You have to. You know, it's like as a teacher, and I get, you know, it can be frustrating when I am taking a class, and you know, if the teacher doesn't understand that, it's like, you know, as an instructor, I am going to be the music when I'm, you know, teaching it to you. That way, when the music comes on, you can breathe a little bit easier that you've already done it. You know, and it's not now like a completely different, you know, different thing. But what I was saying, like, we went off on a musical tangent there, which I loved.
It's okay.
But like the lyrics in this one song, it's like, what good's a dreamer without a believer? We all just need someone to care. And like, you know, it's so true. And you know, it's Tina has been that person. And it's like, you know, I've had many people in my life that have cared. And like, I've had an amazing amount of people in my life that have like seen something in me and told me that to do it, and to like that they have cared. And like, you know, I'm not discounting that because that was a really important part of the journey. But I think what was special about, you know, Tina's role is like, you know, she was someone inside of it that was doing it and already doing her own thing in a lot of ways. And so to have someone there that, you know, gets it in that way and to celebrate me and cheer me on. And, you know, and again, coming from a space where, you know, some of my mentors previously and in other things, you know, had this idea of you can do it, you know, lose 50 pounds, you know, and that's what I was used to. And so the fact that here Tina was, you know, hugging me and telling me that I'm amazing, and there was never any comma, like there was never any but. It was just a period every time. And it's like, I think it's important to find those people that tell you those sentences without buts.
Yes,
you know, and
a period at the end of that.
Yeah, tell me those things with a period. And like, you know, you develop your people, and you know, you hold on to them. And I think in this dance community, and you can see through social media, there's a little like pack of kind of us artists that are like just loving on each other. And one of the, you know, and I know a lot of events are like this, but well, maybe not, I don't know, but a Margay Fusion, which happened in DC, which was formerly Ace and Sierra's event. The amount of love in like the artists, like the biggest thing was like, freaking man, you went to the classes of the other artists and you celebrated each other, and you loved each other for your differences or for, you know, the little things that you're doing. And like, man, it's just, it can be such a beautiful thing. And I think sometimes in the community, we get kind of stuck in this hierarchy and that we have to climb. And Tina and I have talked about this a lot. And like, for me as an artist, like, I'm willing to wait if I'm able to do it and not, you know, step on anybody's head while I'm going up.
Yeah.
You know, or just the fact that this hierarchy doesn't have to exist. And that, you know, knowing
it's true.
Someone at the top of the headliner list, you know, can offer amazing things. So can I. The end. That's it.
And I'm sorry, side note, when we were talking about musical theater, the one musical that ultimately just hits home for me is Sound of Music. Yeah.
Aww.
Yes, that one.
A dear, a female dear. Don't get me started. Stop.
I know. We can definitely just vibe on that privately. But it's having events like at Margay Fusion that I wasn't there personally, but I saw the visuals, I seen the photos. As you guys said, sorry, not you guys, as y'all have said, the connection, the celebration was the most important. And looking at the visuals, hearing the comments, looking at posts of people talking about how much fun they had, that is something that truly needs to be celebrated, because a lot of times in these events that we have, so many people love the music or the DJs or the dances they had, but they don't really also celebrate what it took to create that event.
Oh my God.
You know, because a lot of
100%.
times these promoters, they're creating events, and you realize, for people who create events, you're losing money a lot of times, but it's the love and joy and the anticipation of
Oh my God.
celebrating the success of others that kind of overrides that.
Absolutely.
And like you, like yourself and Tina, as well as other artists that really, like you said, have that that pack, that celebrate one another. It's infectious. That's what it's a beautiful disease, if I can put it in that way, and I think it needs to be spread within our whole community, because the more people can listen and understand that you can gain so much more from collaboration than just separation.
Or competition.
Yes, because I say this, when it comes to congresses, let's leave competition at the door. Because again, everybody's routine is going to be different. Everyone is going to have a different interpretation of the music. And when it comes to the music, you really just have to know how to feel. I feel for those that just get on the stage. It's not so much about being just a beginner or an intermediate or professional. It's about being a dancer, because our community, even though we feel it is big, it is still very small. You know, and the more we celebrate, you know, we can eliminate the hate. And even Jennifer writes, I hate competitions, takes all the fun out. And what does she do at the end? A period.
Yes, period.
You know,
oh my gosh, 100%. And like at a Margay Fusion, like we had a panel, and it was the most moving thing I've ever been a part of. It was this beautiful safe space where you had all these different people from all walks of life were able to give questions. And then every single artist that was commissioned for that event was sitting there, and we all answered. And we all had a little moment to tell our story. And it's like, you know, I fully believe that like the people that come into dance, they're crying out for a way to tell their story in a way that they don't know how yet. And, you know, for us as artists to have a safe space to express whatever that story is going to give that student the little, you know, oomph that they need to, you know, to be it and to not be afraid of it anymore. And I love, you know, what you said about like just freaking celebration of each other. And it just doesn't have, like, in that, as I was sitting on that panel, you know, at a Margay Fusion, for a split second, you know, I was like, I do not need to be up here. Like, why the hell am I up here? We got freaking Joanne Soriano. We got Edwin and Dakota. We got Tina. We got Sincere. Like, so many incredibly talented, and like so many others that were, I can't even, you know, Jonathan and Jennifer, like just too many to name. But the beautiful thing is, like, whenever you create this environment of celebration, that moment that I had lasted for a split second, and then it left because the space that they had created didn't give me a moment to doubt myself.
Yes.
And like in these other spaces that we're talking about of competition, comparison, and, you know, whatever, those are the spaces where we lose ourselves. And when we listen to that voice that says, you don't deserve a seat on this panel, you should leave. And inevitably, if we don't find those safe spaces, we're going to get up and we're going to walk away from a panel in which we could have said something that changed someone's life in that moment, you know? So it's like this idea, Serena, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it's very humbling, and it's such a crazy journey. But like, you know, Tina being, you know, and Tina and I are not exclusive dance partners. Like, we work with anybody everywhere. We're just kind of each other's favorites. You know, which has been a kind of a fun piece, because it's like we've talked to some other artists that are like, how did you guys find each other? And I need to find a partner if I'm going to be successful. And we're like, no, you don't. You don't have to have a partner. And that's another thing with this whole, like, we're trying to change these ideals, and that, like, you don't have to have a partner to, bring something meaningful. And, yes, I love what Jessica just said, that like these instructors, DJs, organizers, they're real people with fears, insecurities, and struggles and doubts. Absolutely. We all, and I think like having panels like that where we talk about those things, it's like, it normalizes it, and it lets that person in the audience know that, like, oh, wow, they've felt this before too. This person that I like look up to, idolize, whatever you want to call it, when we're able to go to that vulnerable space, that's whenever the magic happens, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. And noticing too, like, I think a big issue in our scene, especially with body image, is that a lot of leads, when they see women or men or genders that have a different size, they kind of like perceive that this is how they will be on the dance floor. And even me having a private conversation with you, I let you know, and many of us know, that a lot of my dances have been with either with women or men of different shapes and sizes, and people who are you consider bigger or curvier, to me, are some of the most amazing dances ever, because I don't look at the image. I look at the person. I look at the joy. I look at the emotion, because it's not about your weight. It's not about what I perceive you to be or what I think you should be. It's about, like you said, in those 3 minutes of that song, 4 or 5 minutes, it's about you and that person going through an experience,
Yeah, absolutely. And like, it breaks me, like, to know that there are people who have reached out to me, and I wish I could say it was a small number of people, but the amount of people that have said, like, wow, I'm inspired by what you do. I tried out the dance scene, but I got bullied, and I felt I didn't feel safe there because I have a curvy dancer, so I couldn't go back. And that's such an intense narrative. And like, Diamond, it happens to me, and this is, maybe it's not embarrassing. Maybe that's part of my insecurities around it too. That's what I just wanted to say just then. But like, so when Tina and I were teaching in a place, and we went to the social, and I didn't know anyone there. Like, my name's not that big yet. A few people know me, but not everybody knows me, And so at this social, like, it wasn't just like no one's asking me to dance. It's I'm asking people to dance, and they look at me and they're like, no. Like, do the look up and down. No. And like that night, like, I cried about it with Tina, because of course, like, Tina's just out dancing the whole time, like everybody, whatever. And I like it, like, finally, and it's so funny how it happens. Cause like, then you start dancing with people in the social, and then people start watching you. And
they look at you and it's like, okay.
Oh, she's good. And then they ask you again, if you gave me some sass on the first try, you do not get to go again. No, this ain't a merry-go-round. Get off. No, thank you. Like, but, we had a very because we came home that night, and I was like, why am I angry? Like, what am I? God, I was not feeling good after the social, like, because it just felt like this gross, like, I had to spend the first half proving myself so that way then people would dance with me. And like, it's heartbreaking. Like, if she and I weren't teaching that weekend and we didn't have things to do, and maybe if I was in a not as good mental health space in that moment, I would have left, and I don't know that I would have come back, and that happens all the time, and it breaks my soul. God, it breaks my heart, and it's just one of those things that, like, we can inspire this change. We can be this change. We can, I can be a curvy dancer as representation as a teacher, but like, these discussions are so important, because it's like, maybe right now there's a lead listening, or even a follow listening, that's like, oh, wow, whenever sometimes you gotta have these moments of checking yourself. Like, wow, I think I just profiled that person, and I thought they were going to dance better because they were smaller, so I asked them to dance. Like, notice it, and then we change the freaking behavior. You don't notice it, and they're like, that's fine. It's not fine. It's, and so there's just been so many times, and like, to this day, like, the last social I was at, if I was in a new city, I guarantee you it happened.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
And
But unless you teach this class before the social.
yes, and then they have more of an not even opinion, they have their perspective, and they've seen
Yes.
that you, like when you said you're dancing with Tina, so they see you with a smaller person, and they're like, okay, maybe I can dance with her and feel comfortable. But I think
Yeah.
like a Malaga Fusion did is having a panel. What did you do? You had a discussion. You opened the conversation
Right.
to thoughts and to ideas that many of the people who are
Mhm.
receiving that knowledge probably didn't have. Just like you said,
Absolutely.
you have leads and follows that are victim to making those judgments, but also
Mhm.
you have the lead and follows that can listen to our stories and say, I went through that, but
Mhm.
these people went through it too, so I'm not alone,
Right.
but I can learn from their experiences.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it's like, you know, these changes that we want, this representation, it comes from our leaders. Like, you know, as a dancer in the scene, you can be a part of the movement. But, you know, like for me in my classes, I always try to, you know, go deeper and, you know, to ask people, why are you here? And I try really hard to like have these moments of like reminding people, like, don't judge people when you walk out onto that social dance floor. Let everyone is on this same playing field here. And I just think that's such a concept that we have to, as leaders in the scene, we have to bring that in, because if we don't, it's not going to happen. You know, so it's like for me as an instructor, I'm never going into a class thinking like, well, I want this person to walk out the door knowing this pattern. You know, no, I want this person to walk out the door feeling more empowered about themselves, feeling more loving of the people around them, and, you know, and not judging people.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I just feel like that's a concept that we need on all fronts right now in the dance community. And I love what Tara said. I'm constantly having to prove myself as a plus size dancer. The worst is the leads who seem openly unhappy when you ask them to dance. Yeah. It's just as bad when you ask and they're like, okay,
Yeah.
can you dance? And the whole time they're like,
Exactly. Exactly. And
I am sassafras. I'm a little bucket of sass. When that happens, I'll let go and just like shine and do my thing. I'm like, if you're not going to give me any sort of
yeah,
interaction
I'm gonna
here,
give it to
what are
myself.
we doing?
Yeah.
Like, and also it's important to note that in those moments when that's happening and someone is not, like, for me, if you're not making me feel seen, bye. Like, deuces. Like if we're dancing and and Nicole taught me this. She's better at it than I am, and I still struggle sometimes of like, if someone's disrespecting you on the floor, and disrespect doesn't always mean like touching you inappropriately or making you feel objectified. Sometimes this disrespect comes from, like the nothingness.
Yeah, you're giving me nothing.
Nothing, and you know what we can do? Thank you so much. Have a good night. Bye.
Absolutely.
Like,
It goes both ways. And
100%.
with body image, I think too, people also get the misconception that even a person being a curvier, being husky, but also people who are skinnier, women who especially have curves and just the predatory nature, because it goes much deeper. Because especially with men, I've also seen it with women, because as a videographer, people don't realize when we're filming, we're not just filming you dancing. I'm looking at the emotion. I'm looking at the eye contact. And I can know when a dance is going the right way, and I also know when a dance is going the wrong way. And I think, especially with our leads, including mainly the men, they have to understand that they have a lot of microaggressions, a lot of facial reactions, a lot of tendencies that turn off their follow. Either they notice it or don't notice it. But it's right to call that out, especially as a man who sees it. Because a lot of times we just have women or follows who speak about it.
Mm-hmm.
Have a man that's telling you this is wrong. This is something that needs to change, because it's not just the size. It's really a confidence thing. If like you said, as a follow, as a woman who is dancing, if you're not making me feel seen and you're focusing on yourself, what was the point of us dancing? You
Right.
know, when we're on the dance floor, don't just pick me because you think I'm good enough for you. You know,
Right. And I love what Tara said, like always proving them wrong. Like, yes. And I hate that that is a thing. Like the amount of times that someone has been like, okay, sure, we'll dance. And then we start dancing and they're like,
oh yeah, that face like, oh whoa, I didn't know you
they're
had
like,
it in you.
oh, she can dance. I'm
And
like, and so here's the thing. Like the way I'm like, you are amazing until proven not.
yes,
Like, let me build you up and we might get out there. And that's another thing, especially as an artist, like, man, every single person I come in contact with, every single dancer, if you ask me to dance, like there always has to be this beautiful bubble of respect
mhm.
and that we are doing this sacred, beautiful thing together, And so and it's my job as the other partner in this dance, it's to give you just as much respect as I want for myself. And
Yeah,
and in that, in that respect, it's also just like, I'm going to come to every single dance level headed, if this person's a beginner, and I'm saying all this to say is I think we deter a lot of beginners by
yeah,
being unkind to them. And I feel
absolutely.
like, I, I was a beginner once. You were a beginner once.
You're
Every single
all
person in this scene was a beginner once. And in a way, we all could learn by continuing to go back to that beginner space. I think the best dancers continue to go back to the basics, to go back to those fundamentals. And so whenever I'm dancing with I know that they're a beginner, and I see it all the time. I'll see artists dance with someone who's obviously a beginner, and they make them feel like crap,
yes.
and I watch them, especially, and this is a whole nother topic, but we sometimes celebrate this, like, we need all the moves, we need all the spins, we need all the, and we forget connection, like Courtney just said, building connection. So for me, if I'm dancing with a beginner, like, it's all about connection. And don't get me wrong, when I say connection, I'm not talking about like sensual. I'm talking about, I'm going to make them feel seen exactly as they are as a dancer right now today. And if that means that all we got is a basic, I'm going to throw so many basic varietals and directions at them that they're going to feel like they know what they're doing. It's like those professional, great people are the ones that the beginner walks away from being like, maybe I can be better. They don't walk away from them thinking like, God, I suck. And the amount of times that I've seen that, because they'll get a beginner and they're like, oh, I need to show them everything. And I'm like, we need to breathe.
Yeah, like just
You
it's
know?
okay having simplicity within just that
Mhm.
connection, and I love everything you're discussing because you're not the only one that thinks this, but at the moment you're the one that is saying it.
Mm.
It's very important. And like even going now back to, what I really want people to understand now is, of course now we're in quarantine. And what I'm always seeing now is you have with Bila with Kyla, you have transitioned, of course, from the in-person classes now to the online work and online classes.
Mhm.
Just seeing, like we've talked about, seeing the amount of students that are just so receptive and they feel your energy, they've built that connection with you, and to see that they support you no matter in person or online is something, as I would say, is called to be celebrated.
Mm.
um, at least I'm so glad we can have this discussion. I really want you, at least before we go, I really want you to give us more information on what Bila with Kyla has been doing as of lately, but
Mm.
also the plans for the future.
Yes. Okay, pause. I'm going to say one more thing,
Absolutely.
because you mentioned quarantine, because it's been a tough time for all of us in 1,000 different ways, and it's going to continue to be a tough time for all of us. And one of the things that I think is blocking some people right now is like, well, I don't have a partner. And I just want to say that, like, we got to release this idea that we got to grow only in the partner work area. And it's like, it's incredible the work that you can get done building your own self up as an individual dancer. And then that's what comes across on the floor, which leads me to Bila with Kyla.
Yes.
So, my slogan is be you, period. And, that's what it is. Like, that's the goal for Bila with Kyla, is like self-empowerment, self-love. And sometimes that looks like body positivity, body love. And sometimes that looks like, sometimes that looks like working on your basic step. And sometimes that looks like just understanding how to move your body again. Like, for me, this idea of like, be you is whatever the thing with that is like, it's about you. And like my goal for my business and my, my dance movement, whatever you want to call it, it's like, I'm here to give you prompts to find the pieces of yourself that you've been hiding or that you've been scared of. And so as far as what I have done, I mentioned that the last kind of year and a half has been kind of the whirlwind of, like, oh, we're doing this. Okay. It's happening.
Yes.
So I branched out and I finally started my first team in February of this year. And I had no idea that it was going to be a virtual team because I started out in Nashville, and I mentioned earlier this wanting this beautiful, safe space where anyone from anywhere of any level can come. And maybe at some point I'll have a couple different teams with a different level, and want to get a little more intermediate advanced. But for right now, I feel very driven to create a safe space where anyone can come, and a non-gendered space, in a space where the choreography that I make can be made, feminine or masculine, which is a whole nother topic that I know you've talked about here, which is super important, of like creating spaces where in classes you're giving options. And so I feel really led to create these safe spaces. So I was super scared. And again, Tina, of course, is just like, just set the date, just do it. Nicole's like, just do it. And I'm like, I don't know. All myself out there. And then finally I was like, okay. So I set an open house. I was like, all right, I'm going to do an open house. And I want to word it like, you're coming to check me out. Like, this isn't an audition. You come and see if you like the vibe that I'm giving off. For now, that's what I felt. So I did that. And I had 41 people come, which blew my face off. I was like, 41, what? In Nashville. And this was before COVID. And so 41 people came to the open house, and then we started the team the next week. And so the way that it worked was like, they came to the open house. I gave them all the details of the 4-month season. And if they showed up the next week, we're in. And I was like, all right. And in my head, I was like, okay, I know a lot of people showed up, but I was like, if I could just get 7 people, I was like 7 people to come and I'll be able to pay the studio. And then we got to the next week and 35 people came back. And I was like, oh my God. And again, it's not about the numbers, but I think that's the power of creating a safe space, because you're going to get more people, and again, like, sure, the numbers are great. And like, that's awesome, but that's never been my number one, goal. Of course I have my moments, as do all of us artists, but that's never been the number one goal. So anyway, started the season. We had our first like month and a half of rehearsals. It was going just swimmingly. So great. Everyone's having a blast. We're learning our choreography. We got a little partner work, but it's mostly individual work. And then the poop storm that COVID just came trucking right along. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I obviously had to cancel all of our in-person meetings, but we continued on and we stayed, stuck it out. And I had 12 people, 13 or 14 people like stay, which I'll take that, in the middle of a global pandemic. And of course, like every person that left, we had a phone call about it. It's like, and some people just aren't online learners. And like, I had to have a moment with myself of like, okay, this is not me. I'm not doing anything wrong here. We're just in the middle of something that we've never gone through. So, and so anyway, so I did that, and that was so fun. I definitely want to keep doing teams. And then one of my Instagram followers messaged me, and they saw me like post something on my story of the Zoom call that I was doing for my Nashville team. Okay. And she was like, I'm sorry, do you have a virtual team that I don't know about? And I was like, no. Well, I mean, it wasn't, but now it is. And she was like, well, could you? And I was like, well. So then I got the idea I do like 6-week virtual teams. So that way anyone from anywhere can come. And it's 6 weeks of an hour and a half rehearsal every week. And my next one's going to start in August. The next one's going to be salsa.
Absolutely. I like that.
Yeah, a little salsa. And so the way it works is like, we'll work it for 6.5 or 6 weeks, and we learn all the choreography, and there'll be little moments of like where, whoever's in it, I'll make groups, and they create their own choreography for like an 8 count or 2. That way that, for me, the goal is like community and camaraderie and love and empowerment. I don't care about the choreography. Like I do, but like, that's like secondary. So I'm going to keep doing that. And then also I'm going to offer, I'm going to start doing body love courses. And then my last little body love shameless plug here, like, we've talked a lot about body image positivity and body love. And I've talked about like, I've talked about creating a safe space for us to start to bring awareness into our bodies. Because sometimes we just don't listen to our bodies, and like the power of listening to our bodies is important. So yeah, I've done body love classes, and it's my and now I'm going to start doing the 4-week courses. And that way we can kind of create a little community. Because one of the things I loved the most about the virtual team was like, we became a family like fast, 6 weeks. And like those people were a family. It was beautiful. And again, that is not me. Like I created a safe container. They did that, like, and so yeah. And as far as like the future for Bylo with Kyla, I want to keep doing teams, and I want to keep, creating spaces where people feel empowered to be their highest self. I want to keep quarantine karaoke. That is a fun little group on Facebook. I go live and sing to them every now and then. And
oh my God.
I definitely make them cry. We have a good time. It's a feels land. It's great.
Yeah.
We like start out all happy, and then because it's a massive group, there'll be like 200 people watching, and I'm just singing, karaoke, whatever. And then like 50 or 80 of them will stay, and we just cry. It's great. Anyway, so what's the future for Bylo with Kyla? I want to continue to not allow my own self-doubt to creep in. And I want to just continue to create content and continue to create safe spaces for people. And, my ultimate goal is like, I want to take body love to congresses. I think it's important. I think we need classes at congresses that aren't just patterns and footwork. And some congresses are doing that. Like a lot, I've seen some that are like starting to push the boundaries of those classes, or like they'll have a panel or like something. And so I feel really driven I just want to create these safe spaces where people can, learn how to love their bodies and learn that it is a skill, and practicing that, and like learning the tools that they can put in their toolbox. And, it's mainly, I feel like safe space just keeps coming back around. And one of the things that Tina and I have talked about doing, this was Tina's idea, and I'm going to push her until we make it happen. But, the importance of, safe space for people with body issues, safe spaces for people that are clean and sober. At these congresses, it is difficult as a person, I think. And I'm not an addict, but I know a lot of addicts, and I don't drink or smoke or whatever you want to call it. I always feel I'm whatever, doesn't matter. But the importance of creating safe spaces. So like Tina and I haven't really talked about this anywhere. So getting the inside scoop. But one of our dreams is we want to host, like have a space at a Congress, before, maybe in the time, like before the shows, like in that pregame time where everybody's going up to the hotel rooms, getting litty, we have a space in one of the ballrooms that we call the sanctuary, and we have like fresh juices, and only like if you're going to be in the space, we ask that you're clean and sober for at least 24 hours beforehand. And we maybe do like a meditation circles, or like a little awareness, activities, and just creating like a safe space where if people that are in this scene where, sometimes heavy drinking is celebrated, if there's someone that has just started their journey on sobriety, it can be really difficult to be in that space.
That is,
So we feel really strongly about like just continuing to create safe spaces. And it's like, yeah, we ask that you haven't, drank or done any sort of drug in the last 24 hours, but that doesn't mean that you need to be, an addict to come. It's for anybody. And like this idea of like making sure that our people in this community feel safe and loved, and can, as leaders and artists, creating that space in order for them to become who they are, not to become us. One of the things I read, and it stuck with me, and I've loved this ever since. It's like, the best leaders don't grow up thinking I want to be a leader. The best leaders are the ones that grow up working on being exactly who they are and not apologizing for it. And because of that, people then start to attract And then you become a leader just because you've decided to be exactly who you are without apologies.
Yes.
And so I just feel like it's so important and beautiful to continue to create these spaces of safety and love and like, you know, showcasing all the things that our beautiful dance community is. And, you know, I think that comes from the top. It comes from the leaders and the organizers and the, you know, the DJs and everybody that, you know, is a part of it. It's a vibe and you feel it. It's like the event that we talked about at Amargue Fusion. Like you feel at an event when the headliners and the artists and whatever love each other, like it's palpable. And I feel like, you know, we become reflections, we become mirrors, and we just want the students and the you know, ticket holders and things like that to just continue to feel this love and empowerment and embrace that. And also I think as an organizer, understanding that that might look a little different than the status quo. And we just got to keep fighting to change that status quo and not be afraid of it. And like, you know, for me as little old Byla with Kyla right now, like, give me a couple years, y'all better watch out. Like,
I definitely feel that because again, in our communities, I think with this quarantine, it has helped a lot of us just kind of thinking of our own thoughts. And I said this in my last discussion. We start really thinking about what is really important. And a lot of times we've been just so focused on let's just dance and party and have fun. But a lot of times we're not focusing on what's really like making us distant, what's really harming us. And like you said, love and empowerment and embrace and celebration, these are all words that need to be used with all of our instructors, all of our promoters, all of our DJs. Because again, we're humans, things happen, but we have to start again looking within ourselves to become better human beings, not just so much dancers, but human beings. And you know, talking with you was an experience because I felt the same feelings at one point. I saw those situations happening with dancers on the dance floor from a lens. I've been that dancer dancing with someone who was always saying, I'm sorry. And I'm looking at this person, I'm saying, you don't have to be sorry. I want you to have fun. I want us to have fun. It's not about because you don't have this term correctly. And I think it's important, again, when we're having social dances, when we're socializing, because that is the word within social, it's about socialization. It's about communication. It's about conversation. And again, we're only going to grow the more we have these discussions, the more we will grow. The more we talk about body image and body positivity, the more we're going to break the body shaming. Because the more and more people who start to love themselves from outward and within, you won't be able to have any hate come in. You know, and talking with you tonight was seriously just a beautiful experience because I feel like we are one and the same, and we've kind of just met. And you know, I see all of these comments, and so many people, even people from New York that I know are on here watching, people from Rhode Island and other places, and you've made so many new fans, but you've given the people that know you already more clarification on who Kyla truly is, because a lot of people who know you personally know the impact that you have, but a lot more people are understanding you as a person, not as a dancer, and understand that you have so much to offer from before and now and in the future. And at least before we go, what is the message, the clear message that you can give to dancers or to people in general when it comes to the word of self-confidence or confidence in general?
Had to breathe before that one.
Yeah.
Hi, Tina.
Tina,
We've talked so much about you. We're gonna have to watch some of this later.
Yes.
Tina, late to the party. That's all right. Oh man. So self-confidence, you know, simply put, and I'll expand, but simply put is that it's always been inside of you.
Mhm.
You know, self-confidence, I mean, if we look at what it actually says, self-confidence,
So,
there, the word self is in there. You know, it doesn't say diamond confidence, Kyla confidence, like, and I feel like for a long time, I was the person commenting on threads saying, I wish I had your confidence for a long time. I was that person. And now, the tables have turned a little bit and people comment that on mine. And it happens all the time. And obviously I can't get to all of them, but when I can, I try to comment and say like, no, I want you to find your confidence. And, like what we talked about earlier is, exactly who we want to be has always been inside of us.
mm-hmm.
It's just that sometimes things that people have said to us, things that people have done to us, traumas that have happened to us,
Mm-hmm.
They lay on top of our hearts and they sit there and they continue to put weight. And I knew it was going to happen. It's because Tina showed up. I think I'm getting a little misty here just because I have seen so many people, I've talked to so many people that, have talked to me about how their team director has made them feel so awful as a dancer and they felt like they couldn't dance. And then they came across my page and they felt like they could dance again. And again, it doesn't have anything to do with me, like I just think that we have to realize that this confidence, we cannot continue to place our own, let me get my words here. We can't continue to place the, acquisition of our own confidence on those that we look up to, on our mentors, on our people that we're fans of, I can look at Lizzo all day and say, man, I wish I had your confidence, and never be able to have it within myself because I always place the word confidence on someone else and not myself.
Yes.
So it's like for me in the department of self-confidence, you got to figure out what's sitting on top of you. You got to figure out what's sitting on your heart, what's sitting on top of, because this confident, beautiful being has always been inside of you. It's just that sometimes they're really small and they're really afraid because of the things that people have said, because of my choir director when I was a freshman in high school telling me that I couldn't sing and he kicked me out of choir, because of the dance instructor that told me that I was never going to be small enough to dance and I should just be a dancer and not teach. The person that when I walked across the hallway said fat bitch, like, the people that don't see me, those are the people and the things and the traumas that have happened that has sat on my heart for a long time until it literally got ripped open and I had to release it. And so, I think the key, the magic potion, the magic pill that we all want to take to find this beauty inside of ourselves and this confidence is sitting with yourself in the quiet and giving a voice to the things that hurt you, giving a voice to those things that came along and tried to make you continue to be your lowest self, and giving them a voice and listening to them, what they have to say, and thanking them for how they have brought you to where you are and letting them go.
Yeah.
And it's like realizing that those are the things that hold us back, and it's like what we talked about, what Tina has done for me and how Tina has brought this, belief in myself that I didn't know that I could have. But the thing is, like, it has nothing to do with Tina and everything to do with a safe space that I was given to find it within myself.
Yeah.
And, finding those voices, listening to them, and giving them a space to talk to you and understanding what they are, and then knowing when it's time to say goodbye and knowing when they don't have a space anymore. And I think that confidence looks different on me. Confidence looks different on you. Confidence looks different on Caitlin, on Tina. And there are ebbs and flows. And I think through it all, we have to be very kind to ourselves, and we have to look at ourselves with kind eyes, and we have to hear ourselves with kind ears. And I think we have to, that's such an intense piece of it, is as you go through that journey of finding this self-love, finding this body love, on the days when it's not as high as it was, we love ourselves through it. And I think that confidence comes from within. And we can comment on those videos all day long. You can send me DMs about how you wish you had my confidence, all day. But the day that you go on there to comment and just say you are fierce, period, and you can say that and not want to take anything that I have, because it's already inside of you, So I think that's what I would say.
Yes, and for me, I think through my discussions with a lot of artists, that the emotion, I talk to artists that have true emotion, that evoke it through their performance, but just through themselves and through their visuals of seeing you in your classes with your students, from seeing performances on stage, from seeing just even your videos in your house cooking pasta. It's just you have that aura and that presence that's infectious. And like you said, the confidence, most people now have to realize that you have to find the confidence within yourselves instead of just telling someone how much you wish you had theirs. It's a beautiful thing to look within yourself, because again, when we talk about self-confidence, self-worth, self-love, self-image, the first thing is self. And because we want to always sometimes look at someone else to find ourselves, but we already had ourselves.
Absolutely. And it's so easy there are so many things to hide behind, Tina and I have talked about this a lot, of because I have struggled with this doubt of this message that I have, is it valid? Is it necessary? Because in my head, sometimes I'm like, this seems very basic. I'm like, maybe this isn't something that needs to be shared, and then I get on here and I see these beautiful comments of all these amazing people yes, me, And so, it's just as, and there's a lot of, I've talked to a lot of really incredibly talented people that hide behind their talents and, are scared. It's a scary, confidence is scary, because you have to look yourself in the eye and see every single piece of yourself and love it for exactly the way that it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And, see the growth in it, and see the growth opportunities. And instead of, I talk about, a big part of this huge shift that happened in my life is I started meditating and connecting to, the universe, this higher power. It sounds, hippy dippy trippy, but whatever. But it's doing that has helped me be able to connect to myself. And, oh gosh, I just lost my little train of thought right there. That's all right. But yeah, anyway, it's so important to find this confidence from within yourself and know that it doesn't come from anybody else. And it feels, I think what I was trying to say is it feels so simple that I have had a lot of doubts of wondering if this message needs to be spread.
Mm-hmm.
And wondering if, do dancers really need this? Do people really need this? And I mean, obviously the answer is yes. But yeah, I mean, I've known a lot of really talented people that it can be tough, because you have to see every single ounce of who you are.
Yeah.
And I remember what I was going to say. This idea of living in alignment of I say that all the time of okay, this happened. That wasn't what I was expecting, and I did not love it, but all right. How can I grow from this? And how can, and along the self-confidence journey, when there are things that come your way that you don't love, it's generally a mirror of something in yourself that needs attention, and that is a tough one to swallow. That one's a tough one, when you're pissed off about something, and then your meditation coach is like, well, we need to look and see, because this is a part of you. And I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, come at me, Bethany.
Yes, I mean, sometimes we all do need meditation, and listening to you and your story from start until present, and also talking about the future. I know it gives so many people in these comments, but also people who will watch this tomorrow and days after, an ability to look within themselves and sometimes take those few minutes to self-reflect. And I appreciate, and I keep saying that I appreciate these topics that we're talking about, because what we're doing here is not just a conversation, it's therapy. It's a therapeutic moment, and it's free therapy.
Oh my God,
Um,
dance is therapy.
yes,
Like if we're
dance,
doing it right,
yeah,
it's therapy.
yes, and for me, like I tell everyone, anyone that I interview, especially people like yourself, even though this was the first interview, this surely won't be the last. And I mean, this is a beautiful ride that we went on together, and we allowed others to join us. And I appreciate everyone commenting, sending their love and their wishes. And one thing is, I was actually got a comment. I was looking at my phone, and someone told me they wanted to send me a donation. And when they told me that, I said, you know what? And I'm gonna let them know is that for people who choose to want to send me stuff like that, I am going to, in return, use those donations and find ways to get back to our community. Because sometimes it's just, I appreciate the love and support, but I want to put words into action. So for me,
Well, let me just say on behalf of the entire community, freaking thank you. Like the poise that you have done all this with, like, let me just celebrate you for a quick sec here. Like it's been so beautiful to see, and like we talked about, like the importance of normalizing this, normalizing what we're doing here, and you're doing it, daily almost now, and it's so, and I think the voices of leaders in the community, and the fact that you are giving a voice to certain people in the community that haven't been seen but have these beautiful hearts that make such a difference, and you see that. And because there's a lot of live discussions that wouldn't have me on. I'm a nobody, in some places, So it's beautiful what you do, and you do it with such poise and grace. And even the tough conversations that you've had to have, like it's. I think it's highlighting, we talk about being an example and we talk about being a mirror. And what you're doing right now is you're normalizing conversations that can feel difficult, but the way you do it with bringing in so much love and light to whatever it is you're talking about, whoever's listening on the other side is going to gain awareness and not offensive, and that's so important. And I think Tina just said it, like, it's such a gift. It's such a gift. And you create such a beautiful space. And this was such a beautiful birthday present, to be over here, and there's not anywhere else I'd rather be than on my birthday tonight. So thank you for giving me a space to share my heart. And I just, you are appreciated, and I hope you feel it.
Absolutely. And, I definitely want people, if they have more information for Kyla, if any questions, concerns, comments, if you have anything regarding, Bodylove with Kyla, I would love everyone to just reach out to her. Before we go, can you just kind of plug in your Instagram, Facebook info?
Yes, it's all the same. It's all Byla with Kyla, Baila with Kyla, Kyla. And it'll be on, and then my Kyla Hallums, which is on the screen here. That's my personal page. I keep doing that, and I keep yanking my headphones out. Good God. End it with grace, Kyla. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
But yes, so those are my Instagram and Facebook pages. Or you can follow me on TikTok if you want to see some weird content occasionally. But yes, please follow. Any time that anyone messages me on Instagram and is like, "I just found you," whatever. I'm like, "Yo, welcome to the family." We're a family. If you're in this, you're in this. And so come join the Byla with Kyla family.
Absolutely, and I definitely support your movement. I support what you do. I support your classes. And again, I want people to see is that, from now and for the future, people like yourself and others that I speak to, I will continue to promote your work, because what you're doing is great for our community, but great for the world. And, just like you appreciate me, I appreciate you. And again, this was such a beautiful conversation, a free therapy session that we had.
Look at all this celebrating we've done tonight. I love it.
We got to build, and I hope during this quarantine you stay safe with you and your family, and everyone in the comments, all of the people watching, stay safe. And again, like I said, this isn't the first, and this is the first, but it surely won't be the last. So, Kyla, I appreciate you so much for coming on this platform, and definitely can't wait to speak to you again.
Yes, I can't wait either. My face hurts from smiling. You all are
No,
amazing. Thank you for all the beautiful comments. I feel very celebrated and special on my birthday today. So
yes,
thank you.
happy birthday, and treat it like your birthday week.
Tina, I'll talk. That's true.
Yes, and Kyla, yes. So get ready, let them have a FaceTime and build and celebrate one another.
Oh, I love you. Thank you so much for everything. I appreciate you.
And everyone, I want you to have a great night. Keep celebrating your birthday, and until next time.
Bye.
Bye.